Welcome to the Coalesce podcast. My name's Grant.
I'm Meg.
And Meg, the other day we have several projects going right now that are using Coalesce, and I was looking at the chat in one of them and just kind of following along what's going on. And one of the guys was lamenting. He's like, "Oh man, I want to search this thing, but I need to search a child collection of things to see if I want to return that thing." And is okay, I'm going to write a service method to handle that. And I said, "Hey, wait a second. There's actually some stuff built in Coalesce, and from the very first time we made this, one of the goals is that you could actually do really easy searching, because even a number of years ago when we first made this, I mean, searching was just really a thing that, hey, you just want to have this really natural sense of searching. And so to be able to build that in, I mean, if you want really supernatural, you're going to have to go into and do some things like with the database and stuff like that. But like for a lot of cases, especially when you're doing lookup fields and things like that, you don't have these massive sets of data. There may be 100 or 200 things in there. And there's a few child items and things like that, which you can really easily neck down that search. And you want this really natural sense of searching. And how do you do that? And so the question is, we kind of looked at this a little bit before, but there's a lot more to it.
We have gone in.
Do you want to show what we have right now?
Yeah.
Well, let's just kind of look at the code and see what's there. And then we'll add maybe just a few things, go over some of the docs and kind of show you what's possible with searching, because it's right out of the box, you get some really super cool stuff. So if we just search here, if you notice, like, okay, so if you just think about a standard search, usually it would say, does this field equal that field? So you'd have to type the entire either question or answer in. Or in this case, like you typically just think, oh, you get the question. But in this case, we're doing in our case, we're doing a contains, I believe, right? So if that word appears anywhere inside, then you get that particular item back.
And this is the search that we implemented where you're just searching that correct answer. If you guys remember, the correct answer is a child.
Are we searching by the correct answer, or are we searching by all the answers?
Based on my text here, it's correct answer. Based on what we implemented, I have to go double.
Okay, let's go double check and see. Because I forget too exactly what it looks like. I looked at it a few days ago, but I have forgotten.
Okay, so let's close these guys. Over in our models, sorry, this is a web project. Over in our data models, question. So here on our question, we've got, okay, it looks like that we can search by question text. Okay. I think we can also search by correct answer though. I thought we had set that up.
But we are searching by the collection of answers.
So maybe my text is misleading.
It is. So maybe we have to update the UI just a little bit. Fortunately, it's just the UI issue. And it would search by correct answer. It just searches by all the other answers too.
So let's see if we put. Oh, it doesn't do that. I don't remember how we implemented this thing. I don't remember how we. Oh, we have two searches. Oh, this is because.
Oh, there's two searches. So search the correct answer, and there's a search everything. Great. Okay.
So this is what the other search is going on.
This is what happens when you have multiple things here.
See, so you can see that one searches.
So that's just the base Coalesce search, right?
Yes. And then if you look here, I think that our other search we implemented. Man, I can't remember. I'd have to go rewatch.
So there's the correct answer text. I think it's down there a little ways.
Oh yeah, right here. So this is what we do. And this is a really basic search that we're doing here. We're just doing it contains. We're not really doing anything else. So Coalesce has a pretty in-depth search.
And that's just our data source. So we're just building a default data source that does it. And this is a totally fine way to be able to provide some extra search capability.
But I think what we're going to get into is Coalesce has some other methods that you can override in your data source specifically for searching. And then maybe go look at how Coalesce does searching. So kind of taking a look back at the docs here.
Yeah, so really there's a search attribute that you saw. And what's really cool about this is let's just talk about the default behavior. Let's say you don't use it at all. If you have a name property, NAME, you will get that field searched automatically by default. If you don't have that, it will automatically search whatever your key is. So that'll be your default search criteria, because we need something, because it has to work on some kind of a field. And so if you want it then to search some other field, then you have to put the search attribute on top of that. Now, what if I wanted to search differently? Like what if,
because you only want to search, like, for example, if you're searching with numbers or GUIDs, you'd only want to search like a starts with rather than a contains.
Sure, right, totally. So how do let's kind of go down through this and see how exactly this. Actually, there's a really cool piece up here. If you scroll up just a little bit, in that second paragraph, where it talks about the ability to put in things that you want to search for. So you can actually put in a property name, a colon, and whatever you want to search for in that property, and it will search it. Even if that property doesn't have the search attribute. And so this is kind of just that idea that you kind of have this ability to filter right there on this in the search argument that you're going to pass in on as one of your args, right?
Yeah.
So that's a pretty easy way to do that if you want your users to have that kind of thing. So.
Yeah. So we can go down a little bit here. And these are all the kinds of things you can search on. So you can search on strings, numeric, enum states, and kind of how these things work. So I think strings are a little bit more straightforward, right?
And there's some options. This is the only one that really has options around it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about those in just a second.
So we'll get to those search methods. Numeric types, these are just kind of exact value. Enums, this is the name of the enum. So you think of enums, they can either be numerical or they can kind of be an actual name, readable. So this searches on the enum name, which is a lot nicer than being.
They have to know the numbers, right?
Yeah.
And the date's pretty cool. It's pretty flexible. It does a lot of different stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can see with the dates, you kind of can do different combinations between like doing, well, it shows you here. I mean, you can type in kind of a more human readable date or a more numerical date, things like that.
Well, and it'll search for effectively a range automatically by leaving out the extra parameters.
Yeah.
Right. So if we just put in February 2017, it's going to search all dates from the 1st through the end of the month.
Yeah.
Which is that's a really cool feature just right out of the box, right? Because it's a very useful case, especially if you're searching logs or something like that. And then the more precise you get, and this goes also down into the times. Mm-hmm. So if I just put an hour and then 00, it'll search anything within the hour.
Yeah. So that's kind of a nice way to search things by date.
But if you put the full time in, it'll look for that exact. So
the nice thing too is it's all implemented for you, right? You don't have to go and write all that logic.
Yeah. Oh, and it does search whole days. So I leave the time off. That's kind of cool. I mean, it'll search from midnight to 11:59, 59, 11 milliseconds, right?
Yeah, kind of what's labeled right here.
Right. So another thing with the navigation properties, so it searches both navigation properties and collection navigation properties. So if I have, in this case, we could put a navigation property on, or we could put a search on a navigation property for correct answer. That would have been another way to solve that. And then also on the collection navigation properties. Now you have to be careful because this can spiral out of control pretty quickly because there's a real sense of, hey, this is going down through the database and it's really easy to not use indexed searches. So with that said, let's kind of look down below at what some of these usage examples are, and let's see what kind of things are possible. So here we're talking about doing these multiple different kinds of search, and let's go look at these actual properties on what we can put. What are the attributes you can assign to a search attribute, or what are the arguments that you can assign to a search attribute?
And before we go, I actually want to just acknowledge just a little warning here, because this is interesting. So you saw we were doing collection searching, and there's a warning here because what's nice about the docs is they kind of call out where might occur.
Yep.
So just being careful with collection navigation properties in searching, because if you have a ton of child entities and you're trying to search on those, you can definitely see some degraded performance.
Yeah, and we'll talk about a little bit of that in the blacklist whitelist thing down below to give you an idea of how that works.
Yeah. So yeah, let's look at these here. So here's an example. We have a person class, some basic information on it, and you can see we've got search on first and last name here, and we've also got the search on the collection of addresses for that person.
And so this will basically say if I type in someone's entire first name, it's going to match on it. Yeah. Actually, it's going to do what it begins with. That's the default searching behavior. So if I start typing in J-O, and it's going to match John, but it also could match Johnson. And so it's going to do an OR between the parameters across the different properties, right? So it's going to say if Johnson appears in this name or this name or this name.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then again, you can always customize those. Oh, and then we have this search here with a custom attribute or a custom parameter with the is split on spaces for your birthday. So if you put spaces.
So this is going to not split it on spaces. So you put the space between the date and the time wouldn't necessarily, it's going to be parsed as an entire date.
Yep.
Date or daytime together.
By default, this is probably true if that's being specified there.
Right.
Yeah, and it tells you right here what's going on. Oh, yeah.
It's split on spaces. It's true by default. So if you put multiple words in, it's going to split those and search for each word across. So like, let's say you type in, if you want to search first name and last name, they're both searched by starting with. And so if you have a Michael Jones and you type MI space JO, it's still going to match because those are going to match across it. Or if you type Michael Jones, it's going to match those fields across and still come back saying each one of the terms has to match in at least one field.
Yep.
Or two fields if you want to do it that way, because each one is split on spaces.
Yeah. So then we've got here's some of our search methods. So we've got begins with, equals, equal to natural, and contains. So we've seen contains and we've seen begins with. Equals is pretty clear. I mean,
that's an exact match, right?
Yeah, an exact match. And then equals natural maybe isn't as clear upon first reading, but it's just I think it's basically mostly the case handling.
Yeah, it's going to use database collation by default if it's evaluated on the server. And you have to be a little bit careful to see whether it's going to be, you want to try to get all of your EF queries to evaluate on the server side, not pull things back to the client side. Do that evaluation. So if you're going to do it on the server side, then you're just going to use whatever the collation is of the database, which usually is going to be some kind of case insensitive thing. Exactly, depending on how your database is set up. But if you're doing it on the C# side, then you may end up with typically exact matches in case.
And here's that whitelist, blacklist that will kind of help you with that warning up there. So Grant, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, so this is basically a way to limit. So what's going to happen, because let's say you label all of your navigation properties with search, and then you could technically just let this thing spiral out of control, right?
Which is a case, right? Because you might want to be able to search those things kind of on their
own,
but as soon as you search a top level parent and it goes all the way down.
Right. So it limits it to 2 levels. So it's going to search your main object 2 levels out by default. And then it's going to use these whitelist and blacklist. So if you put a whitelist in there, it's going to be a comma separated list of types, and it will search those types. And so if you want to limit it to only searching in this particular piece, you can do that. And if you want to, then in this other case, in the blacklist side, that's going to be saying, hey, exclude these types. And so if anything's in the whitelist, it will only search those types. If anything's in the blacklist, it'll exclude those types. So just your typical kind of idea of inclusion, exclusion. Around that. So really the searching right out of the box is giving you some really great things just by using the parameters. Now, or just by using the attributes. It doesn't do everything. And so you can modify your searches by adding extra fields or like modifying like we did before.
Yeah, you can, so let's just hop back.
Yeah, let's look over there. So here we have a data source.
Yeah, like I said earlier, there's more things on the data source for you to override, right? And let's see, the one that you might be thinking of. Oh, here it is. Apply list search term. So this guy is where you can kind of do a little bit more customized searching. Here's the so applies a filter to query based on the search term received from the client. The search term is found in parameters.search. So this is the search that's happening.
This is the actual code that we are using internally to set up these searches, which is fairly complicated. Like I remember writing V1 of this, and there's a whole bunch of splits and things like that to try to get these to work right and kind of build this query up.
Yep. Yeah. So you can see it's pretty robust. I think this works. I very rarely have to override searching. It really works really well in those cases. But if you do have to override it, you can override it here in this method.
Yeah, and if we do it, well, oftentimes overriding it with a method.
Yeah.
Like I'm adding another property like correct answer text.
Yeah.
And then I'm handling that separately. Or in line with the search. Like in this case, when you just think get query, we can just insert that query expression that we want to right in there. And so if I wanted to do some other kind of thing, I could just insert that right into the query expression at that point. So the one thing that is a little bit trickier is using the actual built-in full text search. So if you want to use that, you're going to have to override that and put it in a situation like this, where you said, hey, here's my full text search as a property, and then in this the get query method, you could then add in whatever you want to do for that. And this gets interesting too, because you want to then be able to do things like sorting your results based on the hit rate and things like that. So
yeah, there's a great use case that we had actually for the full text search, which was with IntelliWiki, and Coalesce probably could have done it, searching all of our content on all of our wikis, but man, that would have been very slow.
Yeah, right.
So there's definitely cases where you want to implement your own search because it's just you're searching such a vast amount of data that you need to implement that full text search or just something else a little bit more custom. So definitely use this, but don't think of it as it
doesn't solve all the problems.
Yeah.
And what we found is that in most applications, you have a few tables or a few types of data that may exist over multiple tables that you want to do full text searches on. Like there's bodies of data that you need that for. But much of the time, you have a whole bunch of kind of almost like admin tables or lookups, things like that. And you just want the really nice feature of, I want to be able to search on this and maybe like on a child or something like that. And you just want that stuff to come back and just be really natural in how it works. And so having those navigation properties, having the search on the various names and description fields, those oftentimes cover all the bases that you need. And so that the idea is to provide you kind of a 90% solution with search so that you're not having to build search from scratch for everything. You just build it for the times when it's actually kind of interesting and you actually want to build an interesting search. And I think that's really behind a lot of what we're doing in Coalesce is we're trying to eliminate the problems that aren't interesting and really help you focus on the problems that are interesting and kind of the harder sets of problems. So great. Anything else, Meg, that we've missed on searching? We kind of wanted to take a deep dive to let you know kind of what's available here because there's tons of features.
I think we didn't really do too much coding, but I think that it's all mostly coded for you, which is why.
Right. And if, like, let's say we wanted to search on that term correct answer, and you wanted to have that just by default, we could literally just put the attribute right on that navigation property, and then make sure that our question is tagged with the search on that, because it's going to go all the way down through, and you have to make sure your tags are good, because it just kind of treats each class as its own thing with respect to what it searches. So
yeah, that's it.
Great. Well, until next time, keep on building awesome Coalesce apps.
Thanks,